was hoping.
I would just like to interject for 1 second. So we have received a request from the audience that along with English, if we could also speak in Hindi and Marathi, because we have students from all over Maharashtra here. So it would be really great. Yes.
Sorry, that is something also we discussed. So some of the panelists will be speaking in English totally, then the English and Hindustani, Hindi, Urdu mix, and then we will have English and Marathi as well. So this is this.
Okay. So I was kind of hoping that I get to hear from all of you first before I get to speak, because the issues I have covered or the stories that I wrote are pretty much the ones that many of you all might have read about, heard about. What I want to start with, when I was invited to this session, I was thinking about, should I share my experiences of what all did I have to go through to reach a particular place, to cover a particular issue. But then I thought I should start with saying something beyond that, and the thought that we always discuss in our newsroom. Abhijit sir's here. When I speak to my colleagues there, whenever, so recently, some of you might have heard of the Vishalgarh violence that took place, right? The riots on Vishalgarh. So the very first thing that we as a media or we in a newsroom happen to say, or while reacting to such instances, or in the coverage also, is that there were riots. In Marathi we say dangal झाली आहे त्या ठिकाणी. But should I switch to Marathi? Yeah. So ती खरंच दंगल असते का? तो खरंच दोन गटांमधला हिंसाचार असतो का? हा प्रश्न आम्ही सातत्याने विचारतो, त्याचा विचार करतो. आणि जेव्हा दंगल जर म्हणायचं असेल, if you want to call it a riot, there has to be a retaliation, there has to be an attack from the other side. Violence, म्हणजे दोन्ही बाजूंनी जेव्हा गोष्टी घडतात, दोन्ही बाजूंनी ट्रिगर असतं, त्यावेळेला कदाचित आपण त्याला तशा पद्धतीचं कॉन्फ्लिक्ट म्हणून प्रेझेंट करू शकतो. सहज बोलण्यात सुद्धा वापरला जाणारा शब्द दंगल म्हणून आपण पटकन एखाद्या घटनेकडे बघतो, पण इट इज नॉट व्हॉट इट इज, हाऊ वी टर्म इट. दंगल नसते तर ती एका पर्टिक्युलर ग्रुपने दुसऱ्या कम्युनल ग्रुपने दुसऱ्या कम्युनल ग्रुपवर केलेला हल्ला आहे. तो अजिबातच दोन्ही गट एकमेकांना मारतायत, दोन्ही गट एकमेकांविरोधात काय करतायत, किंवा कोणीतरी ट्रिगर केलं आहे म्हणून कोणीतरी त्याला उत्तर देत आहे, अशा पद्धतीच्या घटना नसतात. बहुतांश वेळा ज्या गेली 10 वर्ष मी हे अशा पद्धतीच्या घटना कव्हर करते आहे, आणि तो एका गटाकडून झालेला दुसऱ्या गटावरचा हल्ला आहे, आणि अशाच पद्धतीने त्याला बघितलं गेलं पाहिजे असं मला वाटतं. सो द व्हेरी फर्स्ट such violence that I covered was literally what I can say bagal mein. My husband who's sitting here he returned home at around 2 in the night, and he was saying I saw a lot of ambulances passing on the main road where we used to stay. I was like, I knew that something is brewing, because that day a poster about Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj had gone viral on Facebook. It was त्यांच्याबद्दल आक्षेपार्ह कंटेंट असलेलं ते पोस्टर होतं, आणि त्यावरून गुन्हा दाखल झाला, इन्व्हेस्टिगेशन सुरू झालं. दॅट वॉज फर्स्ट सच काइंड ऑफ व्हायलन्स दॅट वॉज ट्रिगर्ड बाय सोशल मीडिया दॅट हॅपन आफ्टर 2014 elections, the general elections that had happened, and it affected majority of the parts of Western Maharashtra. And that the case was filed, and typical, like we were discussing, it was initially a crime story that we covered. The police are investigating who have they filed the case against, and for us also it was like Facebook पे कुछ लिखा है तो इसका investigation कैसे होगा, कैसे ढूंढेंगे किसने लिखा है, and that was the angle we were exploring. And then he returned saying there are a lot of ambulances passing, and it was quite abnormal because we were not staying anywhere close to a hospital. 1 or 2 ambulances in the night is understandable, but multiple ambulances passing from this road, which is pretty much located in back then I was living in Hadapsar, for those who know Pune. So it was something that was abnormal. The first reporter's instinct is to call the police to check what is happening. I called the local DCP. He just said, I'll call you as soon as I get free. I am standing in front of a mob of 5,000 people. It was 3 o'clock by then, and next morning we got to know that Mohsin Sheikh, who was returning from his work, who was an IT engineer, was killed in an attack by a mob just because he was wearing a skull cap. That incident really got me thinking about what kind of people are we turning into, what kind of reactions are, because there was a masjid where he was killed, and there were a lot of people who returning after their namaz, and the number was the number was so small that they could not even think of retaliating, they could not even think of responding to that incident or saving this boy. It was not like कौन सा ऐसा इलाका नहीं था जैसे जहाँ पे लोग आके उसको बचा नहीं सकते. Residential area था, काफ़ी लोग थे, but nobody came forward because the attackers were so violent. What is the condition of the case today? His father fighting for justice, and by the way, this is one memory that sticks by me in all these years that I've reported. Every Independence Day, every Republic Day, his father was the first one who used to send me Happy Independence Day message. The first message I used to get in the morning was of Mohsin Sheikh's father, the guy, he lost his child in an attack by Hindu attackers, a group working that particular area. And then conspiracy and everything came out. After that, this I had not witnessed, but Koregaon Bhima, when the riots were happening, I was right in the middle of all those, or not riots again, I shouldn't be using the word, in the middle of when the violence was happening, I was in the village. And obviously, because the Elgar Parishad case, Elgar Parishad and everything was being discussed, my boss was like, just see and just visit and see what exactly is happening. And if you don't find a story, just return, come back, write about whatever exactly is taking place near the Jai Stambh. We went there, my photographer said, शायद आग लगी है आगे, कुछ दिख रहा है. The first thing that you end up doing is ask people if they know anything about it. लोगों से पूछा, लोगों को कुछ पता नहीं है. Jai Stambh is a few kilometers away from the actual Koregaon Bhima village. Then हम लोग पुलिस के पास गए, पुलिस से पूछने की कोशिश की. I'll switch to Marathi again. पोलिसांना विचारायचा प्रयत्न केला. पोलिसांनी काहीही सांगायला तयार नव्हते पोलीस. काय झालंय? Obviously they knew what's happening. A minister was passing by. He was supposed to travel to Aurangabad. A minister from Pune who stays pretty much nearby, Dilip Kamble, who was then the social justice minister, he was passing by. So he saw me and he stopped. He was like, what exactly is happening? He was like, I have been wanting to go to the village to see काय आग लागली आहे, काय झालंय, and जाऊ देत नाहीयेत police. He said, get into my car, I'll drop you there. We would have just crossed a few meters when we were stopped by the superintendent of police for the district. And he said, sir, मी तुम्हाला पुढे जाऊ देऊ शकत नाही. Till then, not seen us. We were sitting in the back of the car. पुढे जाऊ देऊ शकत नाही. We were like, काय झालंय? हल्ला झालाय, जाळपोळ होतीये. Because minister was there, he had to shell out first-hand information. And he said, हल्ला झालाय, जाळपोळ होते आहे आणि परिस्थिती वाईट आहे. We all got off from the car, went to a nearby. There was stone pelting going on from all the sides because we were accompanied by a minister. We got police protection and we managed to enter a house. My photographer happened to have relatives staying there. We entered that house, and for at least 3 to 4 hours, we couldn't get out of the house. There was stone pelting happening from all the sides, and we were not able to figure out what exactly was happening. When I was returning, we were talking about, in the previous panel, we were talking about the media versus the local media. So when I was returning, the people who were in Pune, my fellow reporters, some of them are my friends, they said that we know a lot of things, we know what has happened there, we know what exactly is the conspiracy, we know what exactly was brewing, and we know why this has happened. I was like, I was standing there, the cops are sitting next to me, the police in charge is talking to us, and they're not ready to shell out information. They are still not even in the condition to think about investigating this case. How is it that the fellow media personals here know what the conspiracy is and why is it that this happened and what exactly has taken place there? We were only allowed to go to the villages where the actual vandalism had taken place the next day. And that is when we could see the amount of damage there. Obviously, Koregaon Bhima to this Vishalgarh case that I mentioned, or there was Pusi Savli incidents that happened last year around Independence Day again. In Satara, there was a school kid who had Instagram account where he used to post stories about he liked music. He used to post stories about different kind of music on his on his Instagram in this account, and then he also used to post graphic designs that he came up with. He was studying in 9th standard at that time. And suddenly, his mother dropped him to school for the flag hoisting. He was returning when people came running to his his parents' house and said, your son has posted something very objectionable against Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, and see, he's constantly posting such stories, and you should see what exactly is happening and why is he writing. The child belonged to Muslim community, had no clue about, the only access to Instagram was his parents' phone whenever they allowed him the access for a few hours or for a few minutes, whenever he wanted to post his whatever creative content he wanted to post. But in few minutes, a mob of 100 people, more than 100 people had gathered outside their house, and the only chant that was going on was, Inko Pakistan bhej do. This mother, she was born and brought up in Satara, was scared because her mother and her younger child was there. She rushed out of the house to trying in a bit to find the kid wherever he is. By then the kid had gone to his aunt's house, and he had also figured out something is wrong. He tried posting a story saying that this is not, my account has been hacked and this is not what I'm doing. But by then the mob had gathered outside the police station and outside these people's home. The only thing they were saying कि इनको घर से निकाल दो, अभी के अभी घर से निकाल दो और इनको पाकिस्तान भेज दो. पता नहीं था उनको कहाँ जाएंगे, क्या करेंगे. डरे हुए पुलिस स्टेशन चले गए. लोकल पॉलिटिशियन ने बताया पुलिस स्टेशन चले जाओ, शायद पुलिस तुम लोगों को बचा पाए. वो बच्चे को डिटेन किया पुलिस ने. फ़ोन निकाला गया. They were not able to contact anybody. They were not able to get information of what is happening back home. And in that night itself, they were asked to leave their house with whatever belongings they could take. They had to travel to Karnataka to find a safe spot to a relative's house, and could return only to struggle to find a home in Satara, which has been their birthplace. बाद में पुलिस इन्वेस्टिगेशन में ये पता चला कि उसका अकाउंट, उसकी एक दोस्त थी, वो लड़की को कोई एक लड़का पसंद करता था, एंड उसके मतलब आउट ऑफ द जेलसी, आउट ऑफ द स्पाइट, उस लड़के ने इसका अकाउंट हैक किया हुआ था, एंड उससे ये सारे पोस्ट डाले गए थे. बट बाय देन बहुत टेंस सिचुएशन तैयार हुई थी, एंड मे बी वायलेंस हो सकता था, बट वो रोका गया. फ्यू किलोमीटर्स अवे फ्रॉम देयर 15 दिन बाद पूसे सावड़ी में वायलेंस हुआ, जिसमें नूर हसन शिकलगार, एक लड़का जिसकी बीवी 6 महीने की प्रेग्नेंट थी उस वक्त, उसकी डेथ हुई. सो ऐसे सारे इंसिडेंसेस हैं. और आजकल बिकॉज सोशल मीडिया है, तो इस सारे इंसिडेंसेस के बारे में आप तरह तरह से सुनते हो. 2014 सोशल मीडिया था, बट इतना मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन नहीं था. 10 years down the line, while reporting, while getting, the struggle is also getting access, and we also have to struggle with all kinds of information that people can access via social media.
Thank you. So I think before I invite Girishma, I think what is also important in conflict reporting, or for that matter, any reporting which Prachi was referring to, is the use of certain terms, terminologies. It's also about, so the word riot is being used so carelessly. Despite the fact it is very clear these are the cases of violence against a certain community. But how it will be reported is riot, clash between two communities, riot between two communities. But the fact of the matter is, if you investigate or even have a glance, you will realize it is not a clash, it is not a riot, but clear case of particular violence against particular community. What happened in Delhi in 1984 was not riot. I'm still puzzled when I read Delhi riots about that. Or what happened in Northeast Delhi, for that matter, in 2020 was not riot, but it was anti-Muslim violence, as the 1984 was anti-Sikh violence. So these things. And also the terminology, and especially since we are discussing this in a media conclave, is also the other terminologies. For example, we have been witnessing this in the cases of Israel and Palestine. So when a Palestinian is say, killed, it is being reported that 50 Palestinian died, kind of thing. But when Israeli is killed, it is said that so many Israelis were killed. So, I mean, that is very important, that what kind of terminology we are using, that is very essential to conflict reporting, as it is, say, important for other kind of reporting. So now I would request Grishma.
First off, I would like to apologize to everybody here because I can't speak in Marathi. And if I was in Tamil Nadu and if we were organizing something like this, it would have definitely been in Tamil. So I am very apologetic that I can't speak this language, which is actually a very beautiful language. I'll speak in English if possible. Mehtab can translate into Hindi. Okay. Thank you. So, when I have to comment on conflict, as somebody who started off working on the longest running conflict in India, which is caste, I really feel like the problem doesn't necessarily lie just in how we report it, it's also what we report, right? When I started off as a lawyer, I'm a lawyer by training, I practiced as a lawyer, and even when I was starting off, some of the initial, I was doing litigation, but I was also involved in different forms of advocacy, if we can call it that, where we would, travel to certain regions where there had been caste violence, and we would try to document it, bring it back, especially in instances where even the basic, an FIR wouldn't be registered. We would try to do these fact-finding reports, those kind of interventions we would try to do, and we would realize that conflict in India starts from institutions. Conflict in India is created, is institutionalized, is also like manufactured, is also actively encouraged, is also like actively invisibilized, and is also like, what else, is also like misrepresented by many institutions. One of them is the media. So when since we are talking about conflict reporting, the initial years that I was a lawyer, and we were participating in many initiatives where, we would draft all these petitions and try to get the courts to intervene, to register an FIR. Actually, when I think back to those days, those were very simple kind of initiatives, I would say. And that's when, like with the judiciary, the 4 or 5 years that I practiced, with the judiciary, I realized that the casteism in it is so strong that it's actually honestly so difficult with the judiciary or with the criminal justice system or with the institution of the state itself for us to even acknowledge that violence is a certain form. And I honestly thought, though, peers and colleagues would say that the media is a similar space, I honestly thought that when I switched to journalism, that switch happened with the violence in Una, which I'll come to later. I thought that my writing some reportage, I'll at least be able to document incidents as is once I become a journalist, right? But I came with this hope that I would be able to do that, but my reportage, I was practicing as a lawyer in Bangalore when the violence in Mota Samadiyala in Gujarat happened, where if you all are already aware, 7 Dalit men were brutally attacked, then tied up, and an entire violence was orchestrated around skinning a dead cow, and how it was it was turned into beef consumption, whatever that turned into. But when I went to report that for a YouTube channel, I went to report that for Dalit Camera, I realized that there were no mainstream media channels at that time there. I mean, I went there again 3 weeks after, when there was conversations around within the anti-caste movement, Ambedkarite movement, that nobody is reporting about what's happening there because history was happening in Gujarat. I come from Tamil Nadu, and in Tamil Nadu, irrespective of what progressive politics and different forms of anti-caste work and anti-caste history has been there, we had never seen something like this, where as a response to the violence that was orchestrated against these 7 men, a lot of people, and the scheduled caste community there, the Dalit community there is only 5% at that time. They boycotted entire institutions. They flung dead carcasses of cows into government offices. So this was literally history happening. And I went there 3 weeks after to report. And other than maybe 1 or 2 journalists from the Hindustan Times and I don't remember one more outlet, there was nobody there. There was nobody there. And I went there to document this 10-day rally that happened from the capital up until Una. And again, till the last date, even on the last date, very few people came. So my first experience of proper reporting as a journalist told me that the biggest problem with misrepresentation of any form of conflict in India lies with the media. The media is constructed of lobbies that has always decided what requires importance, what doesn't require importance, what should be spoken about, and how it should be spoken about. So be it sitting in Delhi and deciding that this is how we'll speak about what's happening in Tamil Nadu, this is how we'll speak about what's happening in Karnataka or in Manipur or wherever it is. These lobbies is something that I clearly etched in my head, because engaging and working with those lobbies is a form of negotiation that all of us need to do as journalists, right? At least journalists who understood that journalism is an exercise of truth-telling, which is at least what I tell myself. So while engaging in this exercise of negotiating, I also worked in a mainstream space where I did a lot of journalism. Like, I think in the context of my present reporting, which is that I've been reporting from Manipur from the last week of May in 2023, I would say that that reportage isn't as complicated for me as a reportage that I've had to do in my own region. I come from, though I'm from Tamil Nadu, my parents are from Tulu Nadu, which is the small chunk in Karnataka, which you would all have known as the most, I mean, there are a lot of tropes about this region. They call it the Taliban of India, and, you know, all kinds of references are there for that region. But I started off my long form, I'm actually a long form journalist, long form investigative journalist. I started off my proper writing journalism there, where I did an 18-part series, 60,000 words, where I took back the story of how Brahmanism came to coastal Karnataka 2 centuries back. Everybody wants to talk about Gauraksha, love jihad, but like Sangeeta and like Radhesham sir was saying, everything connected with something that's happening now doesn't start now. I mean, in some regions, you have to go back 2 centuries, 3 centuries, because history has also been written in a way that invisibilizes so much. So the history of my region, I'm basically a Tulu speaker, was also written, Tulu to a large extent, I mean, it has a script. They say now there is a script, again, which is a very Brahmanized version of what existed. We don't even know what existed. But the history of that region has largely been oral history. And what is written has been Brahmanized versions of, it's basically a take that a random dude is like, you know what, this is what the history of this region, this is what the history of this region is. And most of the history books that I have read from that region kind of goes against the oral history that I know. Coming from, you know, oral historians from my own region who continue to like, those oral history has this nature where there is distortion. But even in that distortion, if you were to kind of look for where the history is, you can find it. But the chances of that happening as the years progress and with more Brahmanization is very difficult. But my first attempt was to go to this region and kind of go back by 2.5 centuries and trace the roots of the communalism that is there right now back to the 18th century. And that is my process as, you know, as a journalist who looked at conflict, because that region is, that was more complicated for me as compared to Manipur. I would say that Manipur, the reporting in Manipur, all my reports that I've done, most of them have been long form. Most of them come with context, which I was able to grasp much better because of this, because of the training, I would say, that I've had in kind of looking at the longest running conflict in India, which is caste. So Manipur was very black and white for me as opposed to the reporting that I've done in other regions. But the only reason Manipur refused to be in the focus of everybody is, like Sangeeta said, nobody wanted to speak about it beyond like saying this person died, that person died, and that also much later. 2 months after, I honestly till now believe that if that horrible video hadn't come out, the focus on Manipur would have remained as it was in June and July. Isn't it? It is true. If that horrible, horrible video hadn't come out, the fact that we were all talking about sexual violence from May and June, and different people were reporting about it, and yet most of the journalists who reported on this were from outside. Journalists from there did not report about sexual violence. And we, even though we were saying it, even though I was pitching, like initially I was doing a podcast, the difficulty of being an independent journalist, or even other journalists who do not belong to mainstream publications, is that nobody wants to like consider what you're saying as, you know, as legit. Like I'm pitching from all of June, I'm pitching from there saying this has happened, that has happened. This child who was in custody in April, this 20-year-old adult who was in custody in April was lynched. I mean, he was in custody in April, the violence started in May, was lynched. He got bail on the 2nd of May, and on the 3rd of May, again, he was rearrested, and while he was on the way to jail, he was lynched. So all these stories, sexual violence is not the only violence in this ethnic violence, which is brutal. There are many such other incidents that we all tried reporting on. But till that video came out, nobody was taking us seriously. Everybody only wanted to reduce it to either talk about drugs or to talk about, you know, like Burma-related whatever that they were talking about. It was that bad. If not for that video, we wouldn't be talking about Manipur even now. It would have been spoken about in certain pockets. But unfortunately, not just there, but there have been other incidents. We've seen many incidents of parading of women in caste violence across India. So those incidents have, even though those videos have come, those incidents haven't been spoken about. But the point that I'm trying to make is, reporting in Manipur and in this conflict was extremely difficult because nobody wanted that reportage. At least in my case, I had Caravan, I had a few other outlets, right now Frontline, and a couple of other outlets that stuck by me eventually. But in the initial days, there were very few people who were actually interested from the national media. And from Manipur is not, only the national media doesn't have to speak about Manipur. Even regional media has to speak. In Tamil Nadu, even before I left to Manipur, I kept telling the regional media there to speak about it, you know, because it's as important as any other region. Till the video came, not one of them called. Once the video came out, all of them started calling me. Regional media, national media, everybody's responsibility is to talk about violence that's happening in Manipur. But my experience in these many years has been that the lobbies that sit within media houses, the lobbies that sit within society, decide what needs to be spoken and what doesn't need to be spoken. And right now, that entire lobby is very, very, like, you know, state-endorsed. It's whatever a major chunk of this lobby will go with whatever the state says. So whenever they decide that, okay, we will say that weapons are coming from US and China, I mean, in no part of the world will they allege that US and China are waging war together, but in India they will. They will allege that US and China together are sending weapons to Manipur. And that Arnab Goswami will say, and different people from these outlets will say. And that is the only time that, you know, they will speak about Manipur, the state-endorsed, state-backed media. And then they will go back into their whatever, penis, whatever that is. So the major problem with reporting any form of violence, any form of conflict in India, comes from the media itself. That's been my understanding.
Urvashi?
Grishma, that was very powerful. I was listening to you, and also Prachi, I think you've really like set the tone for this particular panel. And I was just thinking that there are so many inter-country conflicts in our country that we really don't need to look beyond. But my moorings were slightly different. I was very interested in international conflict from, you know, since I was, you know, like in my 20s or something. And of course, that understanding of conflict also changed over time. It became less about, and I understand this is primarily a student centric audience, so I'll try and break it down into, you know, some fundamentals of, you know, what can conflict really be? Like, conflict is like a contestation over territory, over identity, over resources, you know, between two communities for what they think is rightfully theirs. And that kind of understanding can perhaps be mapped out onto different geographies. Initially, I wanted to be a war correspondent, go cover conflicts all around the world. And I remember I was working in a newsroom in Delhi, and my editor told me, "Pehle yahan ka to seekh lo, fir bahar jana." So I was, just like a cub reporter then. And I mean, I obviously took that that advice with a pinch of salt, but then I was like, no, I mean, I can't, I think I wanted to become an independent journalist, very fast. So, which came with its own, with its own pitfalls, which I will not get into. That's a subject for a different day. But the thing with conflict reporting is that when you go in to report any conflict, just remember, you are not the story. You are not the story. You are going to cover something which you're going to cover other people's lives. Remember that. Conflict reporting is not about you being the hero or the heroine of this picture, as we often see white Western correspondents doing, this one, Christian Namanpour from CNN, idhar se udhar chali gayi. And we are not white people, we are people of color. So we will never have that privilege. And I know of colleagues and friends, who have Indian passports, and how difficult it is for them to be foreign correspondents. So even the very idea of foreign correspondent is also, I think, a little redundant. And I'm, kind of conflating the two categories, foreign correspondent with conflict, because usually foreign correspondents go where conflict is, unless, they have a particular reporter station in a particular who's covering the whole country. Like you'll have one person covering Africa from a particular newspaper. But coming back to the idea of reporting conflict is that, especially in this particular age, when, let's just say, newsroom budgets are shrinking, nobody wants to send reporters out, how will you go, right? I think, I can only speak from my experience. I just went, zid karke hi gayi. I had to go. And, I had some frugal savings, and, some friends helped me out. And I remember in 2016, 17, I went to Palestine. And what I can share is a little bit of what I saw there. Obviously, those images that I'll share with you are very redundant, because Palestine then and Palestine now is a very different area. And I was in the West Bank. We were not allowed to enter Gaza. And just little things, like you go into conflict zone, you don't expect bombs and drones and things to just come at you from nowhere. Sometimes regions are in conflict for years together. So there is a normalcy to it, right? And when you enter places like Palestine, or even perhaps even some African countries, you'll see it's so much is like India, like Delhi, Bombay. You'll be like, "Arey, ye to Delhi ka hi, matlab Bombay ho sakta hai, kahin Mazgaon mein hum ghum rahe hain." So it's something like that. And as an Indian person, when you go to cover anywhere, you'll find a lot of goodwill there, because this whole Bollywood connection, everyone knows Shah Rukh Khan, everyone knows, so that kind of breaks the ice, and breaking the ice is very important when you go there. And what I saw there in Palestine, I was there for about 2 or 3 weeks, is that there are everyday acts of resistance. It's not ki, abhi to, of course, it's full guns blazing, especially in Gaza. But then it was just conflict on simmer, right? Every Friday, Palestinian kids would throw stones at the Israeli IDF, and the Israeli IDF, oh my God, they were 18 or 19-year-olds with guns, and all the next generation is being prepared for conflict, both on the Israeli and the Palestinian side. But yeah, as I think Mehta said, it's very important to name the aggressor. There is an Israeli genocide happening of Gaza, and let's also be clear that when we look at geopolitics as a whole, we also have to see where India is, right? We're no longer a so-called aspiring power. We're actually right there. We're brokering sort of deals with Russia and Ukraine. We're being called to talk to Iran. So we also have some heft, and we are not that that the whole non-alignment thing. I don't know how many of you have followed that. This is a very different India. This is an India which is kind of exercising its heft in South Asia, is trying to kind of carve out its, trying to show its muscle, basically, sometimes in not very pleasant ways. And so, as you know, India and Israel, you know, they have like huge cooperation of military ties, of, you know, trade, agriculture, defense. So sometimes it also makes sense to see, you know, the broader, you know, geopolitics, where the money is coming from. Like, follow the money. This is a basic principle in journalism. Wherever you go, पैसा कौन डाल रहा है conflict में? Who are the countries who are involved? Who's funding them? Who's arming them? That's very important to see. And then a lot of it, you know, actually becomes clear. When, also, like, you know, when you go to the ground, you may not be able to talk immediately. Pause, listen, observe. You may be lost. You may not understand the language. But don't parachute in. Take your time. Take 10 days. You know, maybe don't do anything else the whole year. You've just saved for the trip and you're going there. Be safe. Remember, nothing is more important than your life, not any story. I mean, that's what I think. Just always, you know, be safe. I think that's an important thing. And maybe, am I exceeding my time? Yeah. So that's, you know, that one bit of, you know, Palestine. I remember, like, it's a very, you know, people will, you know, politicize Palestine in very different ways, but, you know, it's actually quite stark, you know, what's happening there. And the other bit I, you know, briefly wanted to touch upon was the genocide of Rohingya Muslims, right? Again, you don't have to, like, go beyond South Asia to cover conflict. It's happening right here. South Asia is basically one of the most conflict-ridden regions in the world. Remember, we have, like, 3 nuclear-armed nations, India, Pakistan, and China, okay? So India and Pakistan are, like, I think, nuclear non-weapon states. We don't declare we have nuclear weapons. But I remember going to Cox's Bazar a few years ago, and again, I did this out of pocket. Don't ask me how I did it, I just did it. I just knew I had to go there, and this was accessible for me, and I, you know, made contacts with a local NGO. And again, there, it's very interesting how the dynamics play out post-conflict, you know? There's an entire genocide happening, an exodus happening of Rohingya, you know, Muslims and also some Rohingya Hindus into Bangladesh. So how is the host communities, how are they affected, right? And there is a certain amount of resentment because, you know, refugees come and, you know, at some level, Bangladesh has provided them a lot of space, but there's also resentment. And then there's this massive influx of international NGOs, which will come with their own money and own politics. And it creates, and that also, you know, like in that particular area, Cox's Bazar, suddenly everything will become very expensive. Why? Because the international NGOs are there. You know, just notice the dynamics, speak to locals, blend in as much as possible. If you don't understand the language, befriend someone. Always pay the person who is helping you, even if it's a little bit of money. Don't expect free work. Give everyone due credit. You know, these are like basic ethics that you should follow when you're in the field, especially as an independent, you know, journalist who's covering conflict. I think maybe more will come later, but this is what I wanted to share for now.
So I think one thing which Urvashi was referring to, or maybe the listing that do's and don'ts while doing conflict reporting. Once Saurabh finishes, maybe I'll come to both Prachi and Grishma, and then Saurabh also, to also list what we should be doing and should not be doing while the conflict. But first, his initial remarks.
मैं एक्चुअली इसी पे बोलना चाह रहा था. तो एनीवे कुछ चीज़ें जो हाँ मतलब चूँकि स्टूडेंट भी हैं काफ़ी, तो कुछ चीज़ें मैं बताना चाह रहा था और एग्जाम्पल्स मैं उन कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स का दूंगा जो अभी हो और जिस पे आप डेली रिपोर्टिंग देख रहे हैं. तो सब जो एस्पेक्ट है इसमें ऑफ कोर्स वो एस्पेक्ट है लेक्सिकन का. माताब ने इशारा भी किया, बाकी पैनलिस्ट ने भी इस पे इशारा किया, पर उस पर मैं थोड़ा सा एक्सप्लेन आपको करना चाहता हूँ. 2 चीज़ बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है इंडिया में जब आप इंडियन मीडिया को देखते हैं इंटरनेशनल कॉन्फ्लिक्ट को रिपोर्ट करते हुए. नेशनल की बात हमने कर ली, यहाँ पे हमने जैसा उन्होंने समझाया कि क्यों आप वायलेंस को राइट नहीं कह सकते, जो इनिशियल उन्होंने बताया उसके में क्या डिफरेंस है, टेक्निकलिटीज़ है, वो भी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. ऐसे ही जब आप फॉरेन से कॉन्फ्लिक्ट को रिपोर्ट करती है इंडियन मीडिया, तो वहाँ पे बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट ये हो जाता है कि आप लेक्सिकॉन को इंपोर्ट नहीं करेंगे. लेक्सिकन को इंपोर्ट करना क्या होता है? फॉर एग्जाम्पल, आप में सब ने हमास को सुना है, हमास के बारे में सुना है, हिजबुल्लाह के बारे में सुना है। अमेरिकन जो वहाँ की जो लीगल अथॉरिटी है, उनकी नज़र में हमास और हिजबुल्लाह एक टेररिस्ट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, ठीक है। उनके रिपोर्टर अगर बोलते हैं टेररिस्ट, तो वो समझ में आता है कि दे आर टूइंग द लाइन विच देयर गवर्नमेंट इज टेकिंग। ऑल्दो मैं इसके हक में नहीं हूँ, आपकी अपनी भी कोई इस पर ओपिनियन होनी चाहिए, लेकिन खैर, इंडिया में होम मिनिस्ट्री एक प्रोस्क्राइब्ड टेररिस्ट ग्रुप की एक लिस्ट बनाती है। आप उस लिस्ट को जाके देखें और चेक करें कि उसमें कौन सी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं। क्या उसमें हमास है? क्या इसमें हिजबुल्लाह है? यूनाइटेड नेशन सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल की अपनी लिस्ट होती है। एक बार यूएनएससी के लिस्ट में जो टेररिस्ट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन लिस्ट हो जाती है, जनरली फिर दुनिया के सारे कंट्रीज को उनको फॉलो करना होता है। आप यूनाइटेड नेशन सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल की लिस्ट में जाके देखें हमास और हिजबुल्लाह की क्या स्टेटस है, या कोई भी। जनरली क्या होता है, चूंकि एक लेटेंट इस्लामोफोबिया इस सोसाइटी में ऑलरेडी है इंडिया में, तो वो जब कपल कर जाता है इस लेक्सिकॉन के साथ, इस इन वर्ड्स के साथ जो हम इंपोर्ट करते हैं दूसरी जगह से, तो ये यहाँ के मीडिया जो रिपोर्ट करने के लिए जाती है उनके लिए बड़ा आसान हो जाता है ब्रांड कर देना, ठीक है। तो वो सडनली टेररिस्ट वर्ड यूज़ करने लगेंगे और आप 10 दिनों तक आपके कान को वही वर्ड सुनाई देगा, तो उसका नॉर्मलाइजेशन हो जाता है। तो पहला अव्वल तो ये है कि एज ए रिपोर्टर आप इन वर्डिंग्स को ध्यान दें कि लेक्सिकॉन हम वेस्ट से इंपोर्ट तो नहीं कर रहे हैं। वो क्यों कर रहा है? बिकॉज ही इज़ नॉट अ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट रिपोर्टर, वो हेलीकॉप्टर जर्नलिस्ट है। जस्ट बिकॉज कि वो आज 7 अक्टूबर को ये अटैक हुआ और 8 अक्टूबर को आप वहाँ पहुँच गए, इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि आप सब्जेक्ट एक्सपर्ट हैं। सब्जेक्ट एक्सपर्ट उसको कहते हैं जो 6 अक्टूबर को भी फिलिस्तीन के बारे में सोच रहा था जब तक ये अटैक नहीं हुआ था। जो 8 अक्टूबर को वहाँ पे आ रहा है, उस कंपनी के पास पैसा है उसको भेजने के लिए, डज नॉट मीन ही इज अ सब्जेक्ट एक्सपर्ट। अब वो क्या करेगा? इनिशियली पहुँचेगा, जाहिर है उसने पूरे साल भर तो कोई, या उससे पहले के 10 साल उसने ध्यान नहीं दिया वहाँ पे क्या चल रहा है। गज़ा एकाएक तो नहीं हो गया 7 तारीख को, 6 को क्या हो रहा था, 5 को क्या हो रहा था। तो वो क्या करेगा? वो इमीडिएटली वेस्टर्न प्रेस ने जो फाइल किया है 2-4 आर्टिकल इधर उधर पढ़ेगा ताकि उसका अपना पीस टू कैमरा हो जाए। यहीं पे इंपोर्ट करता है वो लेक्सिकन को, क्योंकि उसको पता ही नहीं है कि 6 तारीख को क्या हुआ है या 5 को क्या हो रहा था। तो वो लेक्सिकन को, यानी उस वर्ड को, उस टर्मिनोलॉजी को इंपोर्ट करता है जो हम अपने यहाँ देखते हैं रिपोर्टिंग में। अव्वल तो ये। दूसरी इंपॉर्टेंट चीज़ एक ये है कि वेस्टर्न प्रेस में स्पेशली वो एलाइज जो अमेरिकन प्रेस या अमेरिका के एलाइज हैं, उसके लिए जो वर्डिंग यूज करती है, जिसके तरफ महताब ने इशारा किया, उसको हम अंग्रेजी में कहते हैं टिरनी ऑफ पैसिव वॉइस, या उसको हिंदी में कह लें पैसिव वॉइस का अत्याचार कह लें आप। ये पैसिव वॉइस का अत्याचार क्या है? ये इजराइल और पैलेस्टाइन के केस में आपको वेस्टर्न रिपोर्टिंग में हर दिन दिखेगी। जो महताब ने इशारा किया, पैलेस्टीनियंस डाई, एज इफ कि इसमें ऑब्जेक्ट नहीं है, ये अपने आप हो गया, पैसिव वॉइस में ये काम हो गई। whereas इजराइलीज आर किल्ड। अब ये आपको बहुत छोटी सी चीज़ लगेगी, लेकिन वही होती है कि आप 10 दिन जब सेम चीज़ को पढ़ते हैं तो सबकॉन्शियस में आपके ये चीज़ जाके बैठती है। रिपोर्टिंग करते वक्त ये बहुत ज़रूरी है कि लैंग्वेज, जैसा मैंने पहला, एक तो लेक्सिकन इंपोर्ट नहीं करना, और दूसरा ये जो टिरनी ऑफ पैसिव वॉइस है, इससे दूर निकलना, इससे दूर भागना। अगेन ये भी हम इंपोर्ट वेस्टर्न प्रेस से करते हैं। उनके वर्ड्स यूज कर रहे हैं, उनके एक्सप्रेशंस यूज कर रहे हैं, उनका स्टाइल यूज कर रहे हैं, यानी हमारा अपना कोई टेक इस पे नहीं है, एक चीज़। दूसरा ये कि कॉन्फ्लिक्ट के 2 पहलू हैं। एक तो उसका क्या इम्पैक्ट है लोगों पे, जो पीपल पे उसका इम्पैक्ट है, वो एक पहलू है, और एक उसका मिलिटरिस्टिक पहलू है। जनरली क्या होता है रिपोर्टिंग में, 2 किस्म के रिपोर्टर आपको नजर आएंगे। एक जिसको इंसानों का पता है लेकिन मशीन का पता नहीं है, यानी जो वेपन सिस्टम यूज हो रहे हैं उसका पता नहीं है। या एक स्टड होगा जिसको वेपन सिस्टम सारा पता है, उसने वेपन सारे रट रखे हैं, इंसानों का पता नहीं है। इसके बीच बैलेंस बनाना बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। मैं क्यों ये बात कह रहा हूँ, आप सबने इनिशियल जो 7 अक्टूबर के बाद जो वीडियोज़ आई थी, उसमें देखा होगा काफ़ी सारे इंडियन जर्नलिस्ट गए थे। जब आप एक्सपर्ट सब्जेक्ट एक्सपर्ट नहीं होते हैं तो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट में जो पार्टी जिसके पास सुपीरियर मीडिया स्ट्रेटजी है और सुपीरियर मॉनिटरी कैपेबिलिटी है वो आपको यूज़ करता है और आपको खबर भी नहीं होती। जैसे 8 अक्टूबर से लेके अगले 10 दिनों तक जब पूरे वेस्टर्न प्रेस में ये हुआ कि 40 बच्चे हमास ने मार दिए, ये बिल्डिंग्स को उसने जला दी, फलाना, सारे इंडियन रिपोर्टर ये बात कर रहे थे। किसी इंडियन रिपोर्टर ने, क्योंकि उनकी ट्रेनिंग ही नहीं है मिलिट्री की, किसी इंडियन रिपोर्टर ने ये नहीं पूछा कि शॉर्ट और मीडियम वेपन से ये 5 फ्लोर का मकान कैसे गिर गया। जिस इजरायली मकान के अंदर में आप कह रहे हैं कि सिविलियंस को हमास ने मारा, वो 4 मंजिला मकान शॉर्ट और मीडियम वेपन से कैसे गिर गया जिससे लैस थे हमास के फाइटर। ये बाद में खुद इजरायली अखबारों ने एडमिट किया कि उनके हेलीकॉप्टर्स ने, उनके टैंक्स ने उन बिल्डिंग्स में सेल्स मारी। यानी आइडिया ये था कि जो वहाँ पे बंधक हैं और जो फाइटर हैं हमास के, दोनों को मार दिया जाए ताकि बंधक वापस ना जाए गाजा में, हमें बाद में डील ना करनी पड़े। ये चीज़ इजरायली न्यूज़पेपर कह रहे हैं, बट इजरायली न्यूज़पेपर कह रहे हैं 1 महीने बाद, जब लीक्स हुई, जब टेप्स निकल के आई, जब जिसको विसल ब्लोअर्स कहते हैं वो आए। आप एज ए वॉर कॉरेस्पॉन्डेंट अगर 8 तारीख को या 9 तारीख को वहाँ पे थे तो आपने ये क्वेश्चंस क्यों नहीं पूछा? तो आपको कॉन्फ्लिक्ट कवर करने से पहले एज आई सेड, एक तो पीपल सेंट्रिक एक आपका अप्रोच होना चाहिए कि आप प्रोपेगेंडा में ना फंसे, लेकिन आपको मिलिट्री टैक्टिक इनके बारे में भी जानना बहुत ज़रूरी है। अगर आप में से कोई चाहता है कि आगे मुझे कॉन्फ्लिक्ट कवर करनी है, आपको बेसिक वेपन सिस्टम तमाम चीज़ें पढ़नी पड़ेगी। ये कोई बहुत अच्छी चीज़ नहीं है, लेकिन आपको पढ़नी पड़ेगी। तो ये चीज़ बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है इसमें कि कॉन्फ्लिक्ट में रिपोर्ट करने के लिए कि सब्जेक्ट एक्सपर्टीज़ बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। अगर नहीं होगा सब्जेक्ट एक्सपर्टीज़ आपका, तो जैसा मैंने कहा, जिसके पास बेटर मीडिया स्ट्रेटजी है और जिसके पास बेटर रिसोर्सेज हैं मनी वाइज, वो आपको यूज़ करेगा। जैसे होल सेट ऑफ इंडियन जर्नलिस्ट जो कहीं भी कॉन्फ्लिक्ट जोन में जाते हैं, आजकल ये पूरे दुनिया में सबको पता चल गया है कि सबसे आसान है इनको बरगलाना, क्योंकि ये इनको कुछ पता नहीं है। इनको सबसे पहले कोई हैंड आउट दो, ये हैंड आउट पढ़ेंगे, वही चीज़ लिखेंगे। ये पूरी दुनिया में फैल गया। और अब उनकी स्ट्रेटजीज पे बनती है कि जो र्यूमर्स, जो फेक न्यूज़ वो बाकी मीडिया में नहीं डाल सकते हैं, जो वो न्यूयॉर्क टाइम्स में नहीं पब्लिश करते हैं, उसको यहाँ के किसी न्यूज़पेपर, यहाँ के किसी उसमें इंग्लिश मीडिया में पहले पब्लिश करो, फिर उसको रीशेयर करो एंग्लोस्फेयर वर्ल्ड में, तो ऐसा लगे कि किसी बहुत ही रिप्यूटेड अंग्रेजी की मीडिया ने इसको रिपोर्ट किया। तो ये 2 चीज़ मैं यहाँ जो स्टूडेंट्स हैं उनको समझाना चाहता था कि क्यों इंपॉर्टेंट है कॉन्फ्लिक्ट के रिपोर्टिंग के दौरान।
थैंक यू। हाँ, आप Prachi and Grishma, if you would like to add something. I think हम आज या कल बात कर रहे थे, and I think he didn't use those words, but there is a very thin line between conflict reporting and conflict tourism. तो वो उस पे भी I think I'll ask him to elaborate that later, but let's hear first Prachi and Grishma and Urvashi if you want to add something.
आपने डूज एंड डोंट्स के बारे में पूछा। वन थिंग दैट इज स्टक बाय मी, ऐसा दिमाग में जैसे नींद से भी जगाओ तो वो चीज़ याद आती है। मेरी कलीग है CNN में, मतलब IBN ग्रुप में हम लोग जब काम कर रहे थे तब भी हमने साथ में काम किया। अब वो BBC की साउथ एशिया करेस्पॉन्डेंट है, योगिता लिम है। सो योगिता हाल ही में अफगानिस्तान गई हुई थी एक स्टोरी कवर करने के लिए। ऑब्वियसली गवर्नमेंट से बात करना, इट्स अ मैंडेट इन BBC दैट यू नीड टू गेट बोथ द साइड्स। इस पे मैं आऊँगी आगे, लेकिन शी वेंट एंड अप्रोच्ड द स्पोक्स पर्सन ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट। उनके यहाँ ऑब्वियसली वहाँ का गवर्नमेंट है तो औरतों से बात नहीं करेंगे, ऐसे बताया गया। सो द वे द इंटरव्यू हैपेंड वाज, शी वॉज सिटिंग ऑन वन साइड, हर ट्रांसलेटर वॉज सिटिंग ऑन द अदर साइड, एंड द पर्सन जो गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से इंटरव्यू दे रहा था वो तीसरे कोने में बैठा हुआ है, और पूरा इंटरव्यू योगिता सवाल पूछ रही है और वो बंदा उस ट्रांसलेटर की तरफ देख के जवाब दे रहा है। So my first reaction to when I saw the story, when she posted a bit about it on her Instagram story, and my first reaction was, योगिता करना ही क्यों है जब इतना मतलब बात करना ही नहीं चाहते वो तुमसे, तो क्यों ये करना चाहती हो तो तुम? तो उसका जवाब था कि प्राची, कितनी औरतें हैं जिनको यहाँ बैठ के उनको सवाल पूछने का मौका मिलेगा? कितनी औरतें ऐसे हैं जो उस पोजीशन तक पहुँच सकती है जहाँ तक मैं पहुँची हूँ? एंड दिस आई थिंक गेटिंग देम टू स्पीक, ये सबसे ज़्यादा ज़रूरी मेरे हर कॉन्फ्लिक्ट हो या ना हो, गेटिंग देम टू स्पीक, getting the government agencies to speak and to respond is what matters, I think, and especially the kind of stories that I have been covering. जो obviously मैंने जैसे बताया कि मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन ये सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज हुआ है, एंड बहुत बार ये एक्सपिरियंस पहले नहीं आया था. आई डोंट नो वाय. अलीकडच्या काळामध्ये, आय एम स्विचिंग टू मराठी अगेन, अलीकडच्या काळामध्ये महाराष्ट्रामध्ये एखादी घटना घडल्यानंतर तिथे पत्रकारांना थांबवलं जातं. पत्रकारांनी तिथे पोहोचू नये यासाठी प्रयत्न केले जातात. विशाळगडच्या वरती जेव्हा आम्ही पोहोचलो, ॲक्च्युली त्या गावात विशाळगडपासून काही अंतरावरती ते गाव आहे आणि मुसलमानवाडी नावाचा तो एरिया आहे जिथे हा सगळा व्हायलन्स झाला. तर तिथे जेव्हा आम्ही पोहोचलो तेव्हा 2 दिवस होऊन गेले होते घटना होऊन. पहिल्या दिवशी मी गेले, साधारण एक 10 किलोमीटर अलीकडे अडवलं गेलं. आम्हाला पोलिसांनी सांगितलं की अहो एक डेथ झाली आहे तिथे आणि तुम्हाला ॲक्सेस दिला जाऊ शकत नाही कारण आत्ता तणावपूर्ण वातावरण आहे. वी वर लाईक ओके. तिथे जाऊन आलेल्या काही लोकांशी आम्ही बोललो आणि ती स्टोरी रिपोर्ट केली. दुसऱ्या दिवशी खासदार, स्थानिक खासदार, आमदार आणि अनेक लोकल कार्यकर्ते चालले होते. अर्थात पत्रकारांची टीम सोबत चाललेली होती. आणि आदल्या दिवशी तर मी एकटी होते आणि नेटवर्क नव्हतं आणि टोलवाटोलवी चालली होती. कलेक्टर म्हणायचा एस पींना विचारा, एस पी म्हणायचा कलेक्टरची ऑर्डर आहे. आणि अल्टिमेटली द एम वॉज नॉट टू लेट जर्नलिस्ट एंटर दॅट एरिया अँड सी वॉट काइंड ऑफ वॅन्डलिझम हॅज हॅपन्ड देअर. On the third day when we went back, it was a group of 20 of us, and again the same incidents. नेताओं को छोड़ा जाएगा, पॉलिटिशियंस जा सकते हैं क्योंकि वो मदद लेके जा रहे हैं, पत्रकारों को नहीं जाने दिया जाएगा. So we were like, what exactly has happened that you're stopping us from going there? My former camera person, I used to work with Sam TV, उसने मुझे बताया कि जब ये इंसिडेंस हो रहा था तो जो लोग हमला कर रहे थे, ये कैमरा पर्सन ने वो शूट करना शुरू कर दिया. तो उनको चाकू से ऑलमोस्ट, मतलब चाकू लगाया गया उनकी बॉडी को ऑलमोस्ट कि अगर तुम ये शूट करोगे, ये रिपोर्ट करोगे तो हम आप लोगों को मारने वाले हैं. ऐसे सिचुएशंस में पुलिस नहीं आई बचाने के लिए. एंड 2 days लेटर वो बोल रहे हैं कि आपको नहीं जाना है क्योंकि वहाँ पे टेंस सिचुएशन है, आप लोगों के जाने की वजह से वो सिचुएशन बिगड़ सकती है. 2 दिन बाद हम जब जा रहे हैं तो जिनसे हम बात करेंगे उनके वर्जन्स भी बदल चुके हैं क्योंकि दे हैव प्रोसेस्ड द इन्फॉर्मेशन. इंसिडेंस जब होता है, लाइक आई सेड व्हेन आई वाज इन कोरेगांव भीमा, आई वाज वाचिंग इट फर्स्ट एंड आई वाज टॉकिंग टू पीपल एज इट वाज हैपनिंग. मेरे कलीग यहाँ के बोल रहे थे, मेरे दोस्त यहाँ के बोल रहे थे कि हमें पता है क्या हुआ है, जबकि उनमें से कोई वहाँ पे ना नेटवर्क था ना किसी से बात कर सकता था. बट 2 दिन बाद जब मैं वहाँ जा रही हूँ तो जो वर्जन्स मुझे सुनाई देंगे वो इन्फॉर्मेशन मुझे फ़िल्टर करने की ज़रूरत है. Because I know it for a fact that those versions are going to be influenced by someone, by different kind of people they are meeting. Because journalist को नहीं दिया जा रहा था लेकिन बाकी सारे लोग तो वहाँ जा पा रहे थे. दूसरी चीज़ जो मैंडेट, जो मैंने कहा कि सवाल पूछना ज़रूरी है दोनों एजेंसीज़ को. Talk to both the sides and make sure you're not reporting what exactly is seen on social media or the versions that you can read on social media. क्योंकि ये विशालगढ़ वाले इंसिडेंट्स के दिन है, एक वीडियो वायरल हो रहा था और ये कहा जा रहा था कि वहाँ पे जो दरगाह है और मस्जिद है उसको वैंडलाइज किया गया है. जब फैक्ट चेक हुआ तो पता चला कि वो यहाँ का वीडियो है ही नहीं. बट उसके रिएक्शंस पूरे महाराष्ट्र में आना शुरू हो गया था. तो गेटिंग योर फैक्ट्स लाइक टॉकिंग टू पीपल एंड उनके जो वर्जन्स हैं उनको फ़िल्टर करके दोनों बाजुओं से बात करके उसके बाद ही मेरे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में, बिकॉज आई वर्कड इन टेलीविजन, आई वर्कड इन डिजिटल एंड आई वर्कड इन प्रिंट, मेरे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में ये बताया जाता है, नाउ आई एम वर्किंग विद BBC, तो ये बताया जाता है कि 2 दिन बाद खबर फाइल करो तो चलेगा, बट गेट योर फैक्ट्स राइट. कोई ऐसी चीज़ नहीं होनी चाहिए जिस पे सवाल उठाया जा सके. बट ये बाकी कोई, आई डोंट थिंक एनीवन एल्स डज दैट. ब्रेक द न्यूज़ राइट अवे, ब्रेक इन्फॉर्मेशन निकालो ना, क्या दिक्कत है, इन्फॉर्मेशन निकालो, ब्रेक कर दो स्टोरी. ये जर्नलिज्म हो रहा है. एंड आई थिंक इसमें डीलिंग विथ ऑल दीज चैलेंजेस एंड गेटिंग योर फैक्ट्स राइट इज़ वॉट मैटर्स द मोस्ट.
Agreed, 100%. I mean, thankfully I don't have that issue since as a long form journalist we take a lot of time, but in a conflict, there also arises the question of what is happening and how you're reporting. Like for me, Manipur was the first time that I kind of took a little bit of a turn from my long form reportage, and there were instances where I had to report, but like she mentioned, getting your facts right isn't difficult. Actually, it's not. And going to the field is not difficult. Going to the ground is also difficult. But wanting to do that is what is difficult. So I don't have any don'ts. I just have like encouragement for any young person here who wants to do journalism, who wants to be a journalist. I mean, I will mention that it's going to be a difficult ride, but it's a very important space for you all to be in if you're interested to be a journalist. Especially if you're interested to, in the juncture that we are in right now, everything around you is going to be conflict. So starting from your own neighborhood to everything around you is going to be a situation where you will see conflict. But just the exercise of being informed, constantly informing yourself, constantly reading, is what will actually help you. Beyond like all the terms and everything, which you will eventually anyway pick up. The fact that you have to be a very informed person with the kind of political consciousness that's required for you to be a journalist is what will make you a good journalist. And of course, common sense. So these are actually very basic. You don't require, I know some of my closest friends who are very good journalists didn't even go to any journalism school. So even interacting with your peers, you will understand, there are also like, as a long form journalist, the way I picked it up isn't by going to journalism school or anywhere. There is this journalist called Praveen Donti, who I see as my inspiration, in the sense, his reportage, I just used to read every story of his back in the day, when I was trying to be a journalist. I would just read it and try to understand what is it that requires the kind of details and what is the necessity of it. His piece on Kashmir, I remember, even his piece on Rohit Vemula, when Rohit Vemula happened, there was so much detail in it, and all that detail came not only from being a journalist for so long, but also looking for even the smallest of details and understanding how that's going to influence your story. Being very conscious, being very, very careful about where it is that you position yourself is actually the most important thing that you can do as a journalist. But even when you do that, there are issues. For instance, Sangeeta's story that kind of it should have been like carried by every mainstream outlet. It should have been on breaking news and here and there when she broke the audio tapes. Something that was part of that audio tapes is what the CM had allegedly, I never use allegedly in my reportage, but we have to, allegedly said about use of bombs, right? This is something that I had reported on in September of 2023 because I had seen it. I was on the ground, I had done an entire report on it. So when Sangeeta's report came with the CM saying this in his audio tapes, I literally had a ground report to back it up, which is what as soon as Sangeeta shared her reports, I said that evidence number one, I have this, and there were at least 2 more reports like that. Yet nobody spoke about it. Yet it never became like something that has to actively influence the state and create pressure on them to pull this guy up. It did not happen. The series that they did was actually very, very, it was to the point, everything that was being said in different reports, it was like the guy had said it himself, So that will definitely happen in your reportage. As you report, you will encounter such situations where the reportage that you're doing, which is on point, will actually not lead to any conversation or it will not lead to any kind of accountability. But we need to understand that journalism and this kind of reportage itself is a history writing exercise. Nothing might happen now, nothing might happen in a couple of months or whatever, but this is very important because everything that's happening now is distortion. Everything that's happening right now and has been happening for a while has been distortion of the present, of history, and what will happen ahead is, they're already planning how to distort what happens in the future. So to be present and to bear witness in the way that we can, irrespective of where it is, irrespective of where you want to report, if you're mindful of your place, your position, you will do a good job. And if you're well informed. These are the only what formula that I have. I don't have anything beyond this. I don't have anything which has, you know, like, which has really helped me other than the fact that I'm constantly like trying to be as informed from everybody else who's already written, who has written it in the right way, who has spoken about history in the right way. These are the things that I do personally. Thank you.
Urvashi.
So I've been like pondering a little bit about what everyone has said, and I completely agree with Grishma on the need to have, you have to have a political consciousness as journalists. The whole thing कि आपको बताया जाता है आपको objective होना है, हाँ objective ज़रूर होना है आपको, लेकिन truth doesn't have two sides. Truth के बहुत सारे sides होते हैं, और आपको जो भी issue है आपको मतलब you have to have a very nuanced understanding of it. आप उसकी गहराई में जाएं. शायद when you start out your careers as beat reporters, कभी आपको एक दिन बोल देंगे crime cover करो, एक दिन बोलेंगे चलो municipal cover करो या traffic करो, वो भी करो आप, वो भी करिए, वो important है, वो important training है to actually for you to find your direction in life. But all the same, while you're doing all of this, you know, the skill building on the field, just read as much as you can, whatever you can, जो भी आपको मतलब access मिले, and sometimes and also like you know you do end up reading a lot of information on the internet, but you know read with मतलब थोड़ा सोच समझ के पढ़िए. हर जो information आपको internet या YouTube पे दिखती है वो सच नहीं होती है, verified नहीं होती है. एक चीज़ को जानने के लिए आपको शायद 3-4 sources consult करने पड़े till the time you can believe कि अच्छा हाँ ये चीज़ बराबर मेरे को ठीक लग रहा है. So you have to do that bit of diligence yourself, but I agree with the political consciousness bit and also the bit about role models.
Also give them credit. People will be able to tell what it is that is verified and not, right?
Yeah.
Young people, we cannot discredit them
Yeah,
and say that they won't know what they are reading.
It's us also, no?
I mean, in terms of political
Yeah.
consciousness, I
Yeah.
think everybody will be. I mean, I think this whole thing about being apolitical is rubbish. Political consciousness is something that everybody, once they are aware of what is around them, of society, is something that will naturally happen to you. It's a process. It's not something that will happen by reading something on social media. It's a lifelong process. But it is important to engage in this process because that is ultimately what makes you, you know, not just a good journalist, but also like an informed journalist. So I have full trust. Like there is this whole thing about young people not being able to kind of make good decisions because of the influx of information on social media. And I mean, we didn't have that when we started off, right? But I still feel like there is a certain discrediting that we're doing of younger people. I still feel like there are informed opinions that you can come on even with the flood of all the misinformation, as long as you're able to kind of, you know, understand and differentiate between what disinformation is, which is not a complicated process again. I mean, we are kind of trying to, you know, it's for me actually it's very black and white. I'm sorry to say this. It's so black and white that it's so easy to see, irrespective of whether you're a journalist or not. Even being informed in society is this. But I would definitely place the blame on media organizations who are not actually, why are they called the fourth estate? They are supposed to exist and they are supposed to make society be more informed about everything that's happening around us, right? So for the disinformation, that's why even when I spoke about my region, right, the Tulu region, there was a certain history associated with that region that was mainstreamed over and over again of being this mess, this communal, Gauraksha, Love Jihad, all of these things. But that is also because for the longest time, what was happening in that region wasn't reported on. It was a small pocket apparently. So nobody reported on the fact that the RSS has been sitting there from 1940 and doing Gauraksha, Gau Sammelans from 1950s, instigating different kind of thoughts in communities there, both Muslim and Tulu, who are ethnic. The Muslim community in coastal Karnataka, if you see, speak a language called Beri, and they're called Beris. It's a Dravidian language. Both the communities are as intrinsic to that region as, you know, I mean, they're indigenous to that region. And yet, after the 2010s, after all these incidents start happening, when the language of who an outsider started creeping into that society, locating the Muslim as the outsider, there was no writing. there was not even enough history about who the Berries are. So the point that I'm trying to make is to be informed it's actually very, very simple, okay? There's enough writing about a lot of issues that are intrinsic to society right now, but how is it that we access that? You all have it easier than us. We had to pick up books, we had to go to authors, we had to sit in libraries and read. You all have it so much easier. To differentiate between black and white is not that complicated. So I would just say, take the effort to do it, it's possible.
I just wanted to add, sorry Urvashi, we were taking your time, but when this Vishalgarh incident happened, what about it is the immediate reaction to such instances? So when we reported, people started speaking of an incident that allegedly happened in Jalgaon, where a train which a lot of Hindu people were traveling in was attacked by people wearing burqa and skull caps. And people were like, okay, ये report कर रहे हो तो ये क्यों नहीं कर रहे हो? Tula, I've been renamed as Prachi Qureshi, by the way, on social media. but then, so then the first thing that I thought was, am I being biased? Because that was the first thing that came to my mind, that I'm reporting this and I'm not reporting that. Old school methods, I called the local authorities there to check what exactly has happened. And the officials there sent out a message about the investigation, saying that they investigated the incidents for every day for a single week, tried to trace that woman who had her mobile camera on. हातात मोबाईल फोन आहे आणि खाली लोक दिसत आहेत, काहीतरी दिसत आहे, ट्रेन थांबली आहे रँडम ठिकाणी आणि एक दगड येतो आणि बरोबर जिथे मोबाईल ज्यांच्याकडे आहे त्यांच्या खिडकीवर लागतो. इतकं कसं म्हणजे काय नेमकं झालं आहे तर हे इन्व्हेस्टिगेट करायचा प्रयत्न केला, त्या पॅसेंजरला ट्रॅक करायचा प्रयत्न केला ऑथॉरिटीजनी. दे investigated the incidents for a week and they could not find, neither could they track the passenger, neither could they find anything about the incidents. ऐसा कुछ अगर ट्रेन में हो रहा है तो 10 लोग आएंगे ना सामने बोलने के लिए. पैसेंजर को ट्रैक करना इतना मुश्किल है नहीं. बट जब विशालगढ़ हो रहा है, जब वहाँ पे एक कम्युनिटी के ऊपर अटैक हो रहा है, तो इमीडिएट रिस्पॉन्स टू इट इज जलगांव में ये हुआ है, अब उसके बारे में बोलो.
Urvashi, I think you had something more to, yes. Maybe a few things.
Sure. Grishma, I'll just disagree with you briefly. Look, and I'll again speak from my experience. It took me a long time to find my political consciousness. Again, we can discuss this separately. It took me a really long time to even know what politics is, to know what consciousness is, to know what kind of writing I wanted to do. It didn't come easy to me, and I do sometimes speak to students, and I can see they struggle with it. They struggle to articulate it. They struggle, and it's not about talking down to the youth or discrediting them or saying, it's of course it's easier for them, but it's nonetheless my 20s was all about finding my consciousness. So it didn't come in a minute. And the other thing is about being, a conflict journalist is I sometimes worry about the predatory nature of conflict reporting. कि आप जा रहे हैं, किसी का घर जल गया है, मतलब उनके फैमिली में डेथ्स हुई हैं, आप वहाँ पे कैसे उनको सवाल करेंगे, किस टाइप के सवाल करेंगे, ये बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट है. क्योंकि ऐसा हो सकता है, उनको ऐसे महसूस भी होता है कि जर्नलिस्ट के ऊपर भी ट्रस्ट बहुत कम हो गया है. आपको आप जब शायद निकलेंगे फील्ड पे, आपको ये शायद महसूस भी होगा कि मुझे तो लोग सवाल करते हैं, आप कहाँ से आई हैं, आपको क्यों ये इन्फॉर्मेशन चाहिए आपसे, आप इस इन्फॉर्मेशन के साथ क्या करेंगे, हमारा इससे क्या होगा. तो आप अपना रोल कैसे जस्टिफाई करेंगे, दैट टू एज एन आउटसाइडर, स्पेशली इफ यू लाइक गोइंग इन द कॉन्फ्लिक्ट जोन. सो how you project yourself, how you carry yourself, that's very important. And always be alive to people's suffering. Sometimes I feel that I don't get the story as much as I should because I'm just a little afraid perhaps of that person's suffering is so great that he or she doesn't need to answer my questions right away. And that's one. Two, जो सौरभ ने काफ़ी इंटरेस्टिंग चीज़ें बोली, और जो आपने बोला कि मतलब किस टाइप के वेपन्स यूज़ हो रहे हैं, उतना बेसिक नॉलेज भी नहीं होता. वो आप बहुत मतलब आपने सही बात की है. आई ऑल्सो अग्री दैट कि वी काइंड ऑफ नीड टू रियली लर्न अबाउट terminology of weapons, we don't do our diligence. And so when, you know, all of these videos come out, like we're in a place where we're also figuring out, अच्छा ये हुआ है नहीं हुआ है, but yeah, you're right, we do need to educate ourselves on it. और एक दूसरा जो चीज़ है कि जो जब हम फॉरेन रिपोर्टिंग करते हैं, कभी कभी खतरा होता है कि हम अपना ही झंडा बाहर लहराएंगे, क्योंकि हम अपने देश के फॉरेन पॉलिसी से बहुत इन्फ्लुएंस होते हैं. तो क्या हम अपना जर्नलिस्टिक ट्रेनिंग या जो भी अपना जर्नलिस्टिक माइंडसेट क्या ला सकते हैं ऐसे फील्ड में, टू ऑफ कोर्स वेन एवर यू गोइंग एज एन इंडियन, यू नो, यू गोइंग एज इंडियन पासपोर्ट होल्डर वट एवर, लेकिन और जो आपकी मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एक्सटर्नल अफेयर्स हैं, आप शायद वही मतलब उसका आप करेंगे, लेकिन go beyond that, you know, go beyond your country's prejudices. And currently, I don't think I need to get into that. We have a whole lot of like foreign policy, glaring foreign policy kind of, what should I say, red flags right now. So, आप, you know, try and go beyond that. और रही बात पैलेस्टाइन की, कि वहाँ पे people resist in like daily life also, you know, through music, through art, through culture, through graffiti. So look out for the stories of hope, you know. It's not all grim, of course. There is death happening, there's disaster, there's suffering. There's also those little spots of hope, just that bookstore that continues irrespective of the conflict, you know, and that makes, you know, you have to also think about कि लोग साल पे साल वॉर जोन में कैसे रहते हैं, हाउ डू दे लिव, दे ऑल्सो लिव, नो, दे ऑल्सो, उनका भी लाइफ चलता है, पर कैसे, हाउ डज एवरीडे लाइफ रियली अनफोल्ड इन दोज जोन्स इज आई थिंक व्हाट इंटरेस्ट्स मी.
I think one thing which Urvashi was referring to, and I want to elaborate it a little bit, is the honesty. I mean, the honesty required when you go to the field and talk to the people. That is very important. Because at times you will be the only outsider, or you will be the only person who is coming in contact with the victim of a conflict. So there it is very important to remember कि आप over promise ना करें. आप ये ना कहें कि आपके इस रिपोर्ट करने की वजह से सरकार कुछ कर देगी, आपका प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व हो जाएगा. At times as a reporter, and since and we are often pushed by people in our newsrooms also, that we have this tendency to over क्या नाम है, और promise और over promise कि मैं ऐसा करूँगा तो ये हो जाएगा, हमारा सबसे बड़ा मीडिया है और वो मतलब हमारे इतने सब्सक्राइबर हैं, आप हमें इंटरव्यू देंगे तो वो हो जाएगा. तो आई थिंक दैट इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, बिकॉज फॉर देम मे बी यू आर द ओनली पर्सन हु इज़ गेटिंग इन टच, और वो उसमें होप देखने लगते हैं. एंड वो उनके लिए फिर बहुत मुश्किल होता है, बिकॉज इट एड्स अनदर लेवल ऑफ से मतलब उनके लिए एक और धक्का है. एक तो वो ऑलरेडी कॉन्फ्लिक्ट से परेशान है, और दूसरा कि उनको एक होप दिखा था और उसको, सो इट्स बेटर कि मतलब बी ऑनेस्ट कि हाँ आप ये हमें इंटरव्यू दे रहे हैं, बट डोंट एक्सपेक्ट अ मिरेकल, which we often do in order to bring quote unquote exclusive or something kind of thing. So that is very important. I feel we should be remembering in any case, but especially in conflict reporting. Saurabh.
एक एस्पेक्ट जो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट रिपोर्टिंग का है, वो तो बाकी सारे रिपोर्टिंग में भी है, फिर कॉन्फ्लिक्ट रिपोर्टिंग में उसका इंपॉर्टेंस बढ़ जाता है, वो है रोल लोकल जर्नलिस्ट और स्ट्रिंगर का. अगर तो आप उस रीजन में हैं जहां ब्रॉडली वही ज़बान बोली जा रही है जो आप बोल रहे हैं, फ़र्ज़ करें उत्तर प्रदेश में कुछ हो गया, आप हिंदी भाषी हैं तो कोई बहुत ज़्यादा फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता, आपको ज़बान पता है, आप खुद से पूछ रहे हैं, वो आपका इंटरप्रेटर तो है नहीं, तो वो कुछ चेंज कर रहा है नहीं कर रहा आपको नहीं पता. लेकिन आप ऐसे जोन में जाते हैं जहाँ की ज़बान आपको पता नहीं है, तो अव्वल तो एज ए स्टूडेंट अगर आप लॉन्ग टर्म किसी रीजन को कॉन्फ्लिक्ट को कवर करना चाहते हैं, तो अव्वल तो आपको उस ज़बान की नॉलेज थोड़ी होनी चाहिए, बेसिक नॉलेज इतनी होनी चाहिए कि आपका स्ट्रिंगर या लोकल रिपोर्टर आपको उल्लू तो नहीं बना रहा है, इतना तो होना चाहिए आपको, ठीक है. उसके बाद बाकी थोड़ा तो आपको उस पर भी भरोसा करना पड़ता है जिससे आप ये करते हैं. दूसरी चीज़ ये कि जब आप स्ट्रिंगर से मिलते हैं या लोकल रिपोर्टर से मिलते हैं, एक चीज़ को पहले मान के चलिए कि आप कितने भी बड़े ज्ञानी हैं, आपसे बड़ा ज्ञानी है वो उस मैटर का, इसको तो आपको मान के चलना होगा। उसको जो नुआंसेस पता है, छोटा चित्र, स्मॉल पिक्चर, जो उसको पता है वो आपको नहीं पता है। तो पहले कभी भी अपना बायस नहीं बताना है, सब में बायसेस होती हैं। आप अगर बायस बताएंगे, स्ट्रिंगर आपके बायस को सेटिस्फाई करेगा, क्योंकि इसी में उसका फिनेंशियल गेन है। ठीक है, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। आपने अगर जाके कह दिया आपके बायसेस दिख गए, तो वो आपके हाँ में हाँ मिलाएगा। क्यों? क्योंकि इसी में उसका सर्वाइवल है। वरना अगर वो आपके एस्टेब्लिश्ड आइडिया को क्वेश्चन करने लगेगा, तो कल ही आप उसको हटा के बोलेंगे दूसरे स्ट्रिंगर लाओ, इसको ही करते हैं। तो अव्वल तो ये। दूसरा ये कि थोड़े सा स्ट्रिंगर का भी कास्ट लोकेशन, उसकी किससे उठना बैठना, ये भी आपको पता होना चाहिए। क्योंकि बहुत सारे खासकर कास्ट के लेके या रिलीजन को लेके जो बाइसेस है ना, वो जनरेशनल हो जाती। तो ये भी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है समझना कि ये फैक्ट तो हमें बता रहा है, पर कहाँ से बता रहा है। इंडिया से बाहर और भी मुश्किल हो जाता है। जाहिर है कि आपको ज़बान की भी दिक्कत है, ज़बान आपको नहीं पता है तो आपको क्या बता रहा है, नहीं बता रहा है, आप उस पर कितना डिपेंडेंट है। लेकिन एज आई सेड, छोटा चित्र उसे बहुत अच्छा पता होता है, बड़ा चित्र आपको पता है अगर आप कॉन्फ्लिक्ट को कवर कर रहे हैं। दोनों का रिपोर्ट में होना बहुत ज़रूरी है। हम क्या करते हैं, हमें बड़ा चित्र पता होता है, लार्जर पॉलिटिक्स जिसको हम कहते हैं ना, बिग पावर पॉलिटिक्स पता होती है। अच्छा ये कर रहा है, ईरान ने वेपन भेज दिए, तुर्की ये कर रहा है, ये हमें पता होता है। लेकिन वहाँ जो अंदर क्या हो रहा है, जो छोटा चित्र है, वो हम बड़े चित्र से निकालने की कोशिश करते हैं। स्मॉल पिक्चर ड्रॉन आउट ऑफ द बिग पिक्चर, वो बहुत ही गड़बड़ होता है। उसी में बायसेस जो हैं आपके रिफ्लेक्ट होती हैं और आप ओवर पावर कर जाती हैं ट्रूथ को। तो वहाँ पे आपको स्ट्रिंगर पे डिपेंडेंट होना पड़ता है। तो ये एक इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट है। अगर आप कॉन्फ्लिक्ट, अच्छा ये सिर्फ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट में नहीं है, जाहिर है कि स्ट्रिंगर पे डिपेंडेंस तो पॉलिटिकल रिपोर्टिंग में भी है, स्पोर्ट्स में भी है इनफैक्ट। तो इन चीज़ों का ध्यान रखना ज़रूरी है। मैं एक इंसिडेंट, एक एनेक्डोट चाह रहा था कि थोड़ा सा फ़नी है, तो उसके साथ मैं इसको ख़त्म करना चाह रहा था कि आज एक बहुत बड़ी एक्सपर्ट हैं कश्मीर की, इंडिया के लिए लॉबी भी करती हैं अमेरिका में, नाम मैं नहीं लूँगा, आप समझ गए होंगे। हिंदी भी जानती हैं, हिंदी बोलती हैं, काफ़ी पॉपुलर होती हैं यहाँ पे इंटरनेट पे। उनके बारे में बहुत ही एक जो लोकल कश्मीरी जर्नलिस्ट हैं वो बताते हैं, जब उन्होंने शुरू किया कश्मीर को कवर करना, ज़बान जाहिर है पता नहीं थी, आप हिंदी सीख के आए हैं, कश्मीर कॉन्फ्लिक्ट कवर करने गए, वहाँ वो किसी काम का नहीं है क्योंकि वहाँ कश्मीरी बोली जा रही है। ठीक है, ये अर्ली 90s की बात है। जो पुराने लोग होंगे उनको एक नाम याद होगा, मिलिटेंट ग्रुप का अल फरहान। अर्ली 90s में यंग लोगों को नहीं याद होगा, एक मिलिटेंट ग्रुप थी जिसने बहुत सारे फॉरेनर्स को एबडक्ट कर लिया था। 6 फॉरेनर्स एबडक्ट कर लिए थे और बड़ा हंगामा हुआ था उसको लेके, उनको छोड़ने को लेके। उस ज़माने में कश्मीर में 2 ब्रॉड मिलिटेंट ग्रुप होते थे, एक जिसमें ज़्यादा कश्मीरी थे, उन पर भी पाकिस्तान का कंट्रोल था लेकिन थोड़ा लूज कंट्रोल था। फिर एक अल फरहान जैसे ग्रुप्स होते थे जिसमें कि अफ़गान भी थे, पाकिस्तानी भी थे बड़ी मात्रा में, और उस पर डायरेक्ट कंट्रोल पाकिस्तान का होता था। दोनों के अपने मोटिव्स में थोड़े नुआंसेस थे। ये जो हिजबुल मुजाहिदीन टाइप के जो लोकल थे, JKLF टाइप, वो इंडिपेंडेंट कश्मीर चाहते थे, और जो अल फरहान वाले थे जाहिर है वो कहते थे कि इसका मर्जर पाकिस्तान में होना चाहिए। अब इनको कवर करना था, इन्होंने किसी लोकल स्ट्रिंगर को पकड़ा, कहा कि हमें JKLF के कमांडर से बात करा दो, इंटरव्यू करा दो। JKLF का कमांडर बेचारा, उसको अंग्रेज़ी आती नहीं थी, ये अंग्रेज़ी में इसने पूछना था। उसने मोहल्ले में किसी लड़के को पकड़ा जो बहुत ही स्मार्ट था, MA कर रहा था किसी यूनिवर्सिटी से, बोला यार तुमको तो आइडियोलॉजी हमारी पता ही है, मुंह पे पटका बांधो, तुम ही बन जाओ कमांडर। उसको क्या पता, लड़के ने पटका बांधा, मुंह पे बैठ गया, और हिजबुल मुजाहिदीन के यानी JKLF का जो प्रीवियस वो था, JKLF सॉरी पहले था, हिजबुल मुजाहिदीन बाद में बना, उसकी जो आइडियोलॉजी थी ये प्रूव करना चाह रहा था कि कश्मीर एज एन इंडिपेंडेंट कंट्री कैसे सर्वाइव कर सकता है। उसने बड़ी बड़ी जानकारियां दी उसके बारे में कि देखें दुनिया में, अच्छा इसने पूछा कि भाई आपका तो पॉपुलेशन कुछ है ही नहीं, एरिया इतना बड़ा है, कैसे आप इंडिपेंडेंट कंट्री की तरह सर्वाइव करेंगे, लैंड लॉक्ड है, एक्सेस टू सी नहीं है। उसने ज़हीन आदमी था, उसने पूरे एग्जाम्पल्स दिए सेंट्रल एशिया के, नहीं उज़्बेकिस्तान कैसे काम कर, जस्ट उज़्बेकिस्तान और ये स्तान जो है नए कंट्री बन के उभरे थे सोवियत यूनियन से, पूरा उसने एग्जाम्पल दिया कि कैसे ये देखो सर्वाइव कर रहा है, इनकी इकॉनमी कैसे सर्वाइव कर रही है। मतलब उसने कन्विंस कर दिया कि एज एन इंडिपेंडेंट कंट्री ये सर्वाइव कर सकता है। बहुत इंप्रेस्ड हुई, अपना लिखा विखा। अब उसी स्टिंगर से बोला कि भाई तुम अब अल्फरान वाले से किसी से हमें इंटरव्यू करनी है, जो चाह रहा कि पाकिस्तान में मर्ज हो जाए। अल्फरान वाले को जाके स्टिंगर ने पकड़ा, अल्फरान वाले को भी अंग्रेज़ी नहीं आती थी। उसने कहा अच्छा ये बताओ JKLF वाला इंटरव्यू किसने दिया था? तो बोला भाई वो माजिद है, वो शेर कश्मीर यूनिवर्सिटी में पढ़ रहा है। इन्होंने उसको धमकी दी, बोला हमको पता है तुम्हारी बहन जाती है, हम उठा लेंगे उसको, ये वो। उसको फिर से बुलाया, कहा तुम पटका बांधो। अब वही माजिद पटका बांध के अब अल्फरान का कमांडर बन गया, बैठा हुआ है। अब मोहतरमा उससे पूछ रही हैं पहला सवाल कि 2 days ago I met with the commander of JKLF who gave some very solid arguments in favor of why Kashmir should be an independent country. What do you think about it? अब वही माजिद पटका पाने हुए अल्फरान का कमांडर बना हुआ है। उसका पहला लाइन है, मैम I must say here that the commander of JKLF is an idiot and neither he has the sense of history or geography. और यहाँ से फिर उसने सारे इंटरव्यू दिए, अपने पॉइंट्स को, एक एक पॉइंट्स को उतने ही स्प्लेंडिडली तरीके से काटा और प्रूव किया कि क्यों इसको कश्मीर को मिल जाना चाहिए पाकिस्तान के अंदर में। तो ओवर डिपेंडेंस, जबान ना समझना, ओवर डिपेंडेंस ऑन स्टिंगर, ये इस तरह के चीज़ें भी कर देता है कि 30 साल बाद लोग उसको पुणे में डिस्कस कर रहे होते हैं।
I think now we'll open it for the question and answer. आपका सवाल क्या है? आपका सवाल किससे है? अगर इससे शुरू करें और सवाल हो बेहतर है। आपकी का कोई अगर एक्सपर्ट कमेंट है तो वो आई थिंक मे बी आई विल इनवाइट इंडी जर्नल पीपल टू देम नेक्स्ट कॉन्क्लेव में आपको एक्सपर्ट के तौर पे बुलाया जा सकता है। लाइट अगर उधर का ऑन हो जाए, ऑडियंस। आई थिंक ये तो एक एग्जाम्पल दे रहे थे, बट ऐसे हम बहुत सारे एग्जाम्पल्स हैं जो शेयर करते रहते हैं। आई मीन और उस पर मीम्स और बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं। एंड दिस इज़ नॉट जस्ट अबाउट से समवन हु इज़ सिटिंग इन अमेरिका। आई थिंक वो जो एक बात आई थी, द लोकेशन, कास्ट लोकेशन एंड द सोशल लोकेशन, दैट इज़ नॉट जस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट कि मतलब उसके बाइसेस हैं। उसमें एक प्रॉब्लम ये भी है कि अगर आपका जो इंटरलोक्यूटर है या फिर जिसके साथ आप जाते हैं फॉर एंड और फिर जिससे आप बात कर रहे हैं, तो एट टाइम्स जो आप जिनसे आप बात करना चाहते हैं, दैट पर्सन विल नॉट बी कंफर्टेबल डिस्कसिंग दैट विद इन प्रेजेंस ऑफ दैट पर्सन। हाँ, तो ये बहुत सारे केसेस में हमने देखा है कि जब तक उसको वहाँ से हटाया नहीं जाता है तब तक वो उसके बारे में, तो ये बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट है कि आप किसके साथ जा रहे हैं। हाँ, किसके साथ, जैसे कहते हैं ना, संगत का इससे पता चलता है कि मतलब आपके कैरेक्टर का पता इससे चलता है कि आप किसके साथ उठ बैठ रहे हैं। तो ये भी है कि आपसे कोई कितना बात करेगा नहीं करेगा, इस पर डिपेंड करता है कि आप किसके साथ जा रहे हैं। यस सर, you have already asked question in the last. So I'll request if some student or someone has question.
Hello. Hi, I'm Sakshi. I actually wanted to ask a question generally. I mean, whoever answers is fine. I wanted to know how India's position on the Press Freedom Index, which is 159, I guess, how does it impact on the conflict reporting in India and internationally as well?
Any other question? Yes, please. Can you please take mic if there is a mic there?
Can I ask my question until then?
No, there is one question here. Then you can ask. Okay, you can go ahead. Then mic will come here. Yes, please.
Okay. So my question was for Urvashi ma'am. I wanted to ask, you said that hopeful things about Gaza can also be reported. So, but today people are being starving, killed, and I mean there are children being killed. So इस सिचुएशन में कितना सही है टू टेल देम अबाउट होपफुल थिंग्स? आई मीन ये जब कॉन्फ्लिक्ट इस हद तक नहीं पहुंचा था तब करना would have made more sense. And right now, I mean, it is more of an emergency kind of situation. So I wanted you to elaborate on that. And also, yeah, being apolitical and political. I mean, is it not more easier to understand? And if you are curious enough, you'd understand that something that is going on, a larger picture throughout the nation, you try to question कि इस तरीके की बातें क्यों बोली जा रही है कि you know, I am not biological और तुम्हारे मंगलसूत्र चुराए जाएंगे. You question it, and that in a sense makes you a bit more political. So I think जिस तरीके का conflict और picture आज है उस हिसाब से being political or taking a political stance is even easier. I also wanted you to elaborate on that.
Okay. So maybe one question here and then we'll, yeah.
मेरा नाम रामदास है। मेरा सवाल प्राची मैम से है। प्राची मैम ने कहा है कि जहाँ हम भीमा कोरेगांव को कवर करने जा रहे थे वहाँ जर्नलिस्ट को नहीं जाने दिया। मेरा इसके बारे में कहना यह है कि 26/11 जब हुआ
सर क्वेश्चन
हाँ क्वेश्चन ही है
Yes.
क्वेश्चन ही है, मैं क्वेश्चन पर ही आ रहा हूँ। 26/11 जब हुआ तब जब कामटे सर कहाँ है, कहाँ कर रहे हैं, कहाँ जा रहे हैं, ये सब न्यूज़ और रिपोर्टर दिखा रहे थे और उसके बारे में बाद में बहस भी हुई कि अगर ये रिपोर्टर वो दिखाते नहीं तो टेररिस्ट को पता नहीं चलता कि वो क्या कर रहे हैं। तो मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है कि अगर जर्नलिस्ट को रोका जा रहा है तो उसकी वजह ये है या जानबूझ के उनको रोका जा रहा है। और मेरा सवाल सर से है कि ये सवाल पहले सेशन का है लेकिन वक्त का कुछ प्रॉब्लम था इसलिए तो मैं सवाल पूछ नहीं सका कि जो सवाल अभी भी पूछा जाता है कि ये बीजेपी है और ये कांग्रेस ही है जो बोलने जा रहे हैं, रिपोर्टर हो या एंकर हो। अगर ये सवाल जो हुआ है या ये जो प्रॉब्लम अभी है अभी इस वक्त की, ये प्रॉब्लम ऑडियंस की है या जर्नलिज्म या जर्नलिस्ट जो आज का जर्नलिज्म है इसने क्रिएट की हुई है? ये मेरे दो सवाल है। थैंक यू थैंक यू थैंक यू।
So sorry, you had a question and then, yeah. Yes.
Hello. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yes. So I'll start right from the beginning. I mean, thank you so much for showing us this dystopian side of the world in a very academic setting. And given like all of the things that we're talking about, political consciousness, then while maintaining a certain level of objectivity, then explain to this news consuming audience what constitutes as the gratification, as in like, do they exist moments of gratification for doing this work, for being, for reporting conflict? Does it occur, or in this mind space, how do you define, like in an ideal world, if you report on things, people will come to know about it and then the state would act on it to diffuse the situation. Do these moments of gratification for somebody who's reporting on conflict, does it occur, or and what is the nature of like?
Okay. Okay. So maybe, yeah, Grishma.
I'm sorry, this question was
Okay.
to Grishma particularly.
Okay.
Yes, that's all.
Yeah.
So when I talk about political consciousness, right, I'm more speaking about being politically aware, okay? Because education itself, there's a distinction between just education and political education. When we speak about being, like when we speak about educate, agitate, organize, the educate that we're speaking about is being aware, not what we go to school to and whatever we study there, right? So that is the political conscious that I was referring. My friend, the question that you raised, that's my thing about political consciousness. Rest, I think Urushi will answer. As far as your question is concerned, like I said, my journey started with the longest running conflict in India, which is caste. There is no day where we feel like, wow, we've done a good job, because we still feel like we've not done enough. Every day we feel that way because this is the most unglamorous. There's nothing in this, they don't even call it conflict. That's the thing about caste, right? It's not even recognized as the longest running conflict. So when you're constantly trying to report on that over and over again, and also this is something where people are like, there are no reporters coming to us and speaking, as opposed to, as opposed to spaces and regions where people want to report, like different, I don't want to take the names, caste crime, casteism, caste-based sexual violence, caste-based violence, these are all regions where people, it's so sporadic, the kind of reporting on this, there's till now, the fact that till now, starting from Mandal to Rohit Vemula, the whole journey of Mandal happening and then Rohit Vemula dying, and the fact that till then and to this day, people are like, reservation is a privilege and all when they talk, the fact that this itself is not grounded as the most important beat in India is the reality. So, as a journalist, I've never felt that there is that space where you felt like, you're doing enough or you're doing too much or too less. I feel like you're not in a zone where you can think about that, considering it's so difficult to continue to report. For instance, even in Manipur, there was this one report that it took me a lot to report on that one particular incident where this happened only in the valley, which is just where there are only Meiteis who are protesting a certain line of incidents. And there was this one woman who was pregnant, who had nothing to do with the protests that were happening there. She was sitting in her house, a tear gas shell falls into her house and she dies. She and her child. She was 9 months pregnant, so like both of them die. And I reported this after I was asked for a copy from an international agency. With great difficulty, I went and I spoke to the family, even though I told the editors that I don't want to speak to the family, it's not the right thing to do. I went and I spoke to the husband, I reported it, and they didn't carry the piece. Because they said after a month, they responded saying that editorial, this and that. 2 months after that, they killed the piece. This is the reality of reporting, okay? So I was there reporting, I was at the place of the violence for close to a week, after which I pitch. That's how generally we do it, right? I mean, at least in my reporting, that's how it's been. You don't get commissions for Manipur. You have to first go there and then you have to figure what your story is, and then you have to pitch and convince editors that this is an important story. At least international agencies, that's how it is. National agencies, at least Caravan, Frontline, these two have been different according to me. But international agencies, when I have to literally tell them, see, this is how it's important. Somebody died this way, and in spite of it, they kill the story. So actually, the question that you asked, it's not even something that I can respond to very fairly. We are all sitting and talking about how enough reporting is not happening, in some of the most important issues. When entire communities are being called illegal, this and that, how did this come? Where did this start? Why was there no reporting at that time? When this kind of name calling started, who didn't report? Did that reporting not happen at Delhi? Because regional spaces, maybe they were speaking. These are the kind of questions that are constantly there, and answering them and reporting on that is a big hassle. That's my...
I think let's finish with the first question and then I'll take that. Acha. Okay, so I'll answer this in Marathi. I think you understand Marathi. So, मी भीमा कोरेगावबद्दल जाण्याबद्दल नव्हते बोलत की परवानगी नव्हती दिली. भीमा कोरेगावमध्ये जेव्हा ती घटना घडली तेव्हा मी तिथे होते, भीमा कोरेगावमध्ये होते, आणि माझ्या आजूबाजूला दंगल आणि दगडफेक सुरू होती. ते सगळं मी माझ्या डोळ्यांनी पाहिले. अडवण्याबद्दल मी जे बोलले ते विशाळगडच्या घटनेच्या वेळी, आणि विशाळगडला असं नव्हतं झालं की प्रवेश, म्हणजे जेव्हा ती घटना घडत होती, जेव्हा तो हल्ला होत होता तेव्हा पत्रकार तिथे होते. त्यानंतर त्यांना बाहेर काढण्यात आलं आणि त्यानंतरचे पुढचे 2 दिवस त्यांना प्रवेश दिला जात नव्हता. आणि ज्या घटनेचा तुम्ही उल्लेख केलात 26/11च्या, त्या घटनेच्या, म्हणजे माझ्या करिअरची सुरुवात, मी अगदी कब रिपोर्टर पण नाही, इंटर्न होते, त्यावेळेला मला हे फॉर अ फॅक्ट माहिती आहे, आणि पुन्हा पुन्हा हा उल्लेख येतो म्हणून मी हे अगदी आवर्जून सांगेन की ज्या क्षणाला हे लक्षात आलं, सुरुवातीला लाईव्ह कव्हरेज काहीतरी घडतंय आणि काय घडतंय ह्याचा अंदाजही खरंच नव्हता, म्हणजे कुणालाच नव्हता, कुठल्याच ठिकाणी येत नाही. जसं मी म्हटलं, माझ्या घराच्या पलीकडे अशा पद्धतीचा कम्युनल व्हायलन्स होत होता, तेव्हा मला कळलं नव्हतं की काय नेमकं घडतंय. 26/11च्या वेळेला तसंच कोणीतरी कुणावरती हल्ला केला आहे का, फायरिंग होत आहे का, काय होत आहे का, सुरुवातीला गँगवॉर आहे का, इथपर्यंत सगळ्या गोष्टी चर्चा होत होत्या. पण ज्या क्षणाला हे लक्षात आलं तेव्हापासून मेजॉरिटी न्यूज चॅनल्सनी, ज्या संस्थेत मी काम करत होते त्यांनी तर अजिबातच नाही, डिफर लाईव्ह करायला सुरुवात केली. डिफर लाईव्ह म्हणजे काय केलं, घटना घडल्यानंतर काही वेळाने ते रिले केलं जात होतं. अर्थात कव्हरेज करायचं का नाही हा डिबेटेबल मुद्दा आहे, त्याच्याबद्दल वेगवेगळ्या लोकांची वेगवेगळी मतं असू शकतील, पण कव्हरेज न करू देणं म्हणजे भीमा कोरेगावचा परिणाम काय मी म्हणजे माझ्या आयुष्यातला मी सांगते. भीमा कोरेगाव नंतर आपल्याला माहिती आहे एल्गार केसमध्ये अनेकांच्या मोबाईलवरती पॅगासस आलं. मी जिकडे जायचे तिकडे एक व्यक्ती मला सतत भेटत होती. ही कोण आहे माहीत नव्हतं. मी तिला म्हणजे जनरली भेटते, 50 ठिकाणी भेटते, आपण बोलतो. मी तिला विचारलं कोण आहेस काय आहेस, तिने सांगितलं मी पत्रकार आहे आणि मी एका लोकल पोर्टलला काम करते. जर्नलिस्टिक इन्स्टिंक्ट, ओळखीच्या पोलीस ऑफिसर्सना फोन केलं. त्यांनी एका वाक्यात सांगितलं की काही लोक वॉच खाली आहेत, बी केअरफुल. एका वाक्यात. हे परिणाम पत्रकारांना पण म्हणजे त्याच्यानी काय कामावर परिणाम होणार होता का, कशावर होणार होता का माहीत अजिबात अर्थातच नाही, पण हे परिणाम पण भोगावे लागतात. आणि या रिस्क घेऊन पत्रकार कोणासाठी काम करतात, मला विशाळगडवरच्या लोकांचं काय झालं आहे किंवा मी तिथे गेल्याने त्यांना मदत मिळणार होती किंवा मी न गेल्याने मदत मिळणार नव्हती का, असं काहीही नव्हतं. पण ते नेमकं काय झालं आहे हे लोकांपर्यंत फॅक्ट्स करेक्ट काय आहेत हे पोहोचवणं हे माझं काम आहे आणि कर्तव्य आहे असं मला वाटतं. आणि त्यामुळे तिथे जाणं पत्रकारांनी, यापासून त्यांना थांबवलं जाऊ नये कुठल्याही ठिकाणी. कारण पत्रकारांना काय म्हणजे महिन्याचा पगार बातम्या केल्या तरी मिळतो, नाही केला तरी मिळणार आहे. काही काळाने नोकरी जाईल हा वेगळा भाग, पण काम काय करताय तुम्ही, कशासाठी करताय, तर ते यासाठी करताय. आणि त्यामुळे अशा पद्धतीने विशाळगडबद्दल मी जस्ट एक शेवटचा उल्लेख करते. विशाळगडच्या बातमीच्या वेळी जाताना पोलिसांनी आम्हाला काही गाड्यांमध्ये कोंबलं त्यांच्या, तिथनं आम्ही गेलो. येताना पोलिसांच्या गाड्या गायब होत्या. 20-25 किलोमीटरचं अंतर होतं जिथे त्यांनी थांबवलं होतं आणि जिथे ॲक्च्युअल ती घटना घडली होती. धान्याचे मदत घेऊन गेलेले जे ट्रक होते ना, त्याच्यात आम्ही 50-1 माणसं बसून परत आलो. अशा पद्धतीने अर्ज काय आहे तर काय घडलं आहे हे पोचवायचं आहे, लोकांपर्यंत पोचवायचं आहे, काय नुकसान झालं आहे हे पोचवायचं आहे. आणि त्यासाठी मला वाटतं पत्रकारांनी तिथे पोचणं हे आणि लोकांपर्यंत ते पोचवणं हे महत्त्वाचं आहे.
उर्वशी.
Your question. I think you're spot on when you say like you can't be looking for like moments of hope in what is happening in Gaza. That's not perhaps what I wanted to say. I was actually talking about the time like when it was also a different time in Palestine, where like maybe 7 years ago, if you went to the West Bank, I didn't go to Gaza. I went to the West Bank, and where people were drinking tea and they were laughing and playing the guitar and having their smokes and just kind of leading their lives even as they knew they were under Israeli occupation. So it depends also on the kind of conflict that you're seeing. Like in Gaza, what we're seeing in Gaza is unlike possibly like any modern day atrocity you would have seen in maybe since perhaps after the World War II. Maybe this is a very sweeping statement to make, and this is also being it's a highly televised kind of a very visuals, and there's a lot of attention on a lot of media spotlight on Gaza too. But I'm not saying that you there is no sense of forced positivity. But as a journalist, when you go, you also are looking for stories to pitch, and your editor will ask you, so what's happening there? And then if you're like there on the day of a festival, for example, or near a festival, what happens then? What happens when there's a wedding, in a conflict zone? Or what happens when there's a birthday or, something of that sort? So I think everyone, at the end of the day, we're human beings, right? Everyone, goes through their own sort of cycles. So how do they, live their cycles? Like what does their everyday life look like? In Gaza, of course, there is no such thing. We cannot even compare. We are not even making that comparison there. So, yeah, I think that should answer your question. Yeah.
Saurabh, anything? Okay then, thank you so much.